Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, it's a feature story edition of our show. We'll take you to Massachusetts, where the nation's cranberry industry got started.
In southern gardening, see why the plentiful pansy makes a great hanging basket.
3 colors available.
You'll also meet the man who designed 2 of America's iconic tractors, the Ford N and the John Deere 4020. He apprenticed with Henry Ford and produced a tractor that is still being used today, if only to plow gardens.
He said, Mr. Ford had an insatiable desire to get rid of animals, and in 1939 there were still 19 million animals being used on farms, and he said, well, we need a utility tractor that will replace the horse, do more things than just cultivate.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artist Ford. Welcome to Farm Week. Welcome to a feature story edition of our show.
Artists, many people remember their first car, also remember their first tractor. Back in January, the man responsible for the design of 2 of America's iconic tractors passed away at the age of 96. Harold Brock led the design teams that produced the Ford N Series and the John Deere 4020 series. Brock rubbed elbows with the likes of Thomas Edison, George Washington Carver, and Henry Ford. Market to Market's Chris Gorley produced this story.
Mr. Ford had an insatiable desire to get rid of animals, and in 1939 there were still 19 million animals being used on farms, and he said, well, we need a utility tractor that will replace the horse, do more things than just cultivate. When he gave me the assignment, he said, well, if you can design and we can produce a tractor that won't sell for any more than a team of animals, the harness, and the 10 acres of land it takes to feed the animals, that would be good for the farmer, because he could use then the 10 acres to raise food for himself or other people. So that was a challenge, and that price was $585.
Though Harold Brock never earned high school or college degrees, he is credited with designing what many consider 2 of the most important tractors in the history of agriculture, the Ford 9N series and the John Deere 4020. Brock began his career at Ford as a student at the Henry Ford Technical School in Dearborn, Michigan. There he learned about electrical engineering, pattern making, and chemistry, invaluable skills needed in the production of a car.
They said, what do you want to be? And I said, oh, I want to be an engineer. And that was fortunate, because then they assigned me to Mr. Ford as my apprentice foreman at 15. I served at Mr. Ford's knee as an apprentice to him, plus his handful of skilled technicians.
Because he was Henry Ford's apprentice, Brock met some of the 20th century's most important inventors and visionary thinkers, including Thomas Edison and George Washington Carver.
Carver was having us eat soup and bread and that made out of soybeans, and also Carver was wanting Mr. Ford to be on a green fiber diet, and he'd go out and pick up plant life and bring in, we'd have grass sandwiches for lunch, and he said that there's no such thing as a weed, it's just a plant in the wrong place. And so Carver was an excellent person to work with.
In addition to mechanical and metallurgical research, thought and study in the field of chemistry have for years been devoted to the development of new uses for farm products. Until today, the American farmer helps to build motor cars, just as the motor car manufacturer helps to make farming more efficient and convenient. They help each other, and that helps the country. One of the most interesting of these harvests, because it shows the trend, is soybeans. For every million cars produced, 600,000 bushels are used annually for the manufacture of enamels and for plastics, electrical parts, and similar parts.
Known best as the inventor of the modern assembly line, Henry Ford was also a pioneer in the development of soybeans and soy foods. The suit he's wearing in this picture, taken in 1941, is a blend of 25% soybean fibers and 75% wool. It was Ford's intention that he would someday grow rather than mine an automobile. So when Ford put Brock in charge of tractor engineering at the age of 25, one of his tasks was to replace the tractor's metal seat with something more organic.
Because the little steel seat on the little Ford tractor was, that thing was designed maybe 150 years ago, and it cost 38 cents to produce. And Mr. Ford said to me, well, why don't you make it out of soybeans? It'll be more comfortable in the winter and summer for heat and cold. And of course, you never said you wouldn't do it, so I did it. And he asked me, well, how much does it cost? And I'd have to say $2.50. And he said, well, we'll keep working on it to try to get the cost down. Well, then I had to tell him that the rodents were eating the seat right out from underneath the farmers because they like soybeans. So that killed that.
Other endeavors, however, were successful. In 1938, as head of tractor engineering, Brock was put in charge of the development of the Ford 9N tractor. The tractor was a collaboration between Henry Ford and Harry Ferguson. It was a deal sealed with a handshake, with Brock caught in the middle.
Of course, then I had to tell them that I was following their advice because they never got together as a group. So I had a little problem with, pleasing them all that I was following their advice.
The tractor incorporated the Ferguson hitch, an innovation designed to prevent the tractor from flipping over and killing the operator if the plow got hung up on a rock. Brock managed to have the tractor in production in just 6 months. When the U.S. entered World War II, instead of designing tractors, Brock found himself designing Sherman tanks and Ford Jeeps. However, once the fighting ended, Brock began working on the iconic Ford 8N, an all-purpose tractor that would be widely used on farms and construction sites. Between 1947 and 1952, Ford sold over 500,000 8Ns.
There's a big pent-up demand for farm equipment after the war, and so that little tractor, the 8N red and gray tractor, we produced 100,000 a year, which was 25% of the total tractor market with one tractor.
Brock left Ford to work for John Deere in 1959. A disagreement over a poorly designed transmission that was failing stress tests was the cause of his departure.
And I was holding it up, wouldn't approve it. And finally, they came to me and said, we want to put it in production. And I said, well, you better get yourself a new chief engineer. And they did. They fired me and all my test people. So when I went to Deere and new generation tractors, they said, well, Ford's going to come out with a power shift transmission. We won't have one on our tractor. And I said, well, don't worry about it. It won't work. And so I said, we'll design a power shift transmission that really works.
Brock became Deere's first worldwide director of engineering. And while he was in charge, Deere overtook International Harvester as the industry leader. While working for Deere, he helped found the Hawkeye Institute of Technical Learning, borrowing $500 to help start the college in Waterloo, Iowa. In 2008, a new student center was built and named in his honor. And in 2010, the man who never earned a degree received an honorary Doctor of Science degree from Iowa State University for his contributions both to agriculture and education.
I think you need education. I'm all for education, not to, because you would never have the opportunities that I had.
Harold Brock passed away in early January of 2011 at the age of 96. While the man is gone, his contributions to agriculture will be with us for quite some time.
I'm just happy to give credit to all of my people in both the ag and automotive group that helped me accomplish what I accomplished. So it didn't come by me only.
And if you're interested in watching this story on Harold Brock again, go to our Farm Week website, farmweek.msucares.com. We'll have links to the Market to Market website where you can see the story again and read the script. That's farmweek.msucares.com. And Leighton, I bet you can get in the car right now and drive 50 miles in any direction from Starkville, and you'll see an 8N for sale next to the road.
That's right.
More than likely, a working 8N tractor.
An amazing story of the man behind the red and gray tractor. What an amazing career and the people he met.
That's what I'm saying. And then also the 4020 John Deere, which I believe was the first tractor to have a good cab on it, an enclosed cab as well. So, I mean, he didn't have an engineering degree, but apparently had an engineering mind and was able to. And to get to meet Thomas Edison and George Washington Carver and all those people. I mean,
and I didn't realize the connection between Henry Ford and soybeans. That
oh
part of the
yeah,
story.
big connection there. That's right, big connection.
Yeah.
Well, it is time now for today's trivia quiz on Farm Week. It's about the plants that the world uses to grow food. How many do we use? The question: how many species of plants produce most of the world's agricultural production? This would be like corn, soybeans, and so on. Is the answer 6, 15, 24, or 122? I'll have the answer after today's Southern Gardening segment.
Hanging baskets are eye-catching, to say the least. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman tells us about a pansy that looks great in a basket.
Plentiful pansies are a fantastic new pansy series that has a trailing growth habit. Today I'm with Polly Cuevas at Pine Hills Nursery, where she is growing plentiful pansies that are looking good in hanging baskets. The trailing habit of plentiful pansies make for a good spiller plant. There are 3 colors available: lavender blue, purple wing, and white. Plus it has great winter hardiness, surviving in temperatures below freezing. This gives the home gardener an option for making flowering baskets in the winter. When making a hanging basket, select attractive pots or baskets that don't overpower the plants. Plastic pots are lightweight and retain moisture longer. But I like wire baskets. From dressy to contemporary, there is a wire basket to fit anyone's style. Wire baskets need to be lined to hold the potting media. Sphagnum moss liners are made by firmly packing the moss fibers on the inside of the wire basket. Cocoa fiber mats are much easier to work with. In fact, you can simply buy a preformed liner at your local garden center. Watering and fertilizing is crucial for success. Apply until water flows out the bottom. Using slow-release fertilizer at the start of the season or water-soluble once a week will keep your plants looking good. All you need to do is line, pack, and plant to enjoy homemade hanging baskets. And this advice works for any season. I'm Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
And Gary says that when it comes to making hanging basket eye candy, try the plentiful pansy.
Well, it's time now for the answer to today's trivia quiz on Farm Week, and it's about the number of plant species the world uses to produce 99% of the world's agricultural production. Well, the answer is 24, according to Stephen Goff and John Sallerman in the August 2004 edition of Scientific American. Of those 24, rice, corn, and wheat produce most of the calories that the world consumes. We're going to pause now for a break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll have the calendar and one more story for you. See the beauty of the cranberry harvest in Massachusetts. Like most forms of farming, however, oversupply can be a problem.
Committed? Absolutely. People rely on me. I don't take that lightly. Sure, sometimes we get out of sync and things feel forced. That's when the commitment kicks in. You buckle down, hammer it out, and keep it together for everybody involved. So, yeah, I'm completely committed to my marriage. Till death do us part. Commit to your marriage.
Before we get back to our last story, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. The 14th annual Mississippi Beef Agribition takes place Friday and Saturday, March 25th and 26th. The location is the Lee County Agri Center on Highway 145 in Verona. There will be workshops and a trade show. The annual sale takes place Saturday at 12:30 p.m. A workshop on wood, its identification and manufacturing characteristics takes place April 12th. The location is the Franklin Center at Mississippi State University in Starkville. Women interested in learning more about the business end of running a farm or agribusiness should attend the annual Mississippi Women in Agriculture Conference. It takes place Tuesday through Thursday, April 12th through the 14th. The location is the Boss Building Auditorium on the Mississippi State University campus in Starkville. Registration fees vary according to whether you're already a member. We will have links to help you register. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this Farm Week snapshot.
Our last story today is a repeat of one we aired only last February. It's about growing cranberries. We got a lot of reaction to this story, so we decided to air it again. Last year's cranberry crop was one of the largest ever, and the pendulum of supply and demand is swinging against cranberry growers. Market to Market's Andrew Bott examines the realities of the marketplace for this specialty crop.
Few harvests can match the stark beauty and rich color of cranberries in the American Northeast. The state of Wisconsin may have perfected the mass production of this annual crop, but you can trace the berry's roots and history back to the bogs of Massachusetts. Stretching across 14,000 acres of annually flooded fields, Massachusetts farmers are second in the nation in cranberry production, and the red fruit accounts for nearly 1/5 of the state's entire farm production revenue. Some growers harvest the original cranberry vines planted by their ancestors more than a century ago, as the annual crop doesn't call for replanting in the region's sandy topsoil.
We're managing our properties 365 days a year. I haven't seen any corn plants that are approaching 80 years old, and here my cranberry plants are still being very productive after 80 years. And I'd like to see some of the plants that are around that will be doing some of this. So ours requires a fair amount of finesse and a good touch and working in concert with Mother Nature to be able to have a productive cranberry farm.
Fourth-generation cranberry grower Gary Gerritsen has toiled in his family's cranberry operation since the 1970s. As fall approaches, the massive acreages are flooded one by one. Field workers operating beating machines run multiple passes through each bog, literally shaking the cranberries off the vines and into the rising water. A team of hired hands corral the red fruit into concentrated circles, starkly visible from hundreds of feet above. Powerful pumps suck up the floating fruit. Pressured water strips away much of the remaining leaves and chaff, and the berries are dumped into nearby containers. Truckload after truckload of Gerritsen's crop will eventually arrive here, at one of Ocean Spray's massive collection facilities, which run non-stop from late September into November. The imagery of a bountiful harvest evokes a sense of prosperity for the cranberry industry. But a decade-long economic roller coaster has buffeted the pocketbooks of growers, and for many farmers, their parent cooperative, Ocean Spray.
Almost 10 years ago, exactly at this point, the industry was going through an oversupply. The price of cranberries in the industry, including Ocean Sprays, had crashed to about $12 per barrel. We literally announced that price the week I joined the company. There is no average farm of cranberries, but if there was, the average cost of growing cranberries back then was probably around $18 a barrel. So at $12 a barrel, everybody was losing money. So they were interesting times.
CEO Randy Papadelis came to Ocean Spray in 2003 amidst a swarm of grower resentment towards dwindling profits and a company teetering on the edge of a potentially aggressive takeover.
Half the growers in the co-op who believed that they could rebuild what they once had in terms of a strong, profitable business. And you had about the other half who felt that it had been a good run, but they had built up significant equity in this brand called Ocean Spray and felt that if they sold that brand to a large strategic buyer like a Pepsi, a Coke, or a Nestle, that they could realize more value that way.
Ultimately, growers narrowly chose to spurn the Pepsi bottling takeover and embrace a new long-term marketing strategy for the world's largest producer of cranberries. A host of increased marketing efforts launched for the popular dried cranberry snacks, craisins, cranberry energy drinks, and a fresh variety of blended offerings that have bolstered the bottom line. But unlike other food and beverage companies, Ocean Spray's shareholders are its 750 farms.
We, in a sense, try to maximize the cost of our largest raw materials. So I have a lot of colleagues in the consumer packaged goods world, and when I try to explain to them that my job is to actually maximize the cost of my largest raw material purchase, which are cranberries and grapefruit, that's a little different for them.
As businesses across the country cope with the fallout from the Great Recession, the cranberry industry is now faced with its latest wave of oversupply. And according to Papadelis, a nearly all-time low commodity price for cranberries.
Because of the investments that we've put in and the strength of our business, we're actually in a 180 degrees opposite place in regards to the Ocean Spray brand. The Ocean Spray growers will receive the highest return in the history of the cooperative on the crop that we're harvesting right now, whereas the independent growers may in fact see the lowest return that they've ever seen. So it's created quite a dichotomy within our industry.
That gap between those inside and outside the cooperative has created tension throughout the industry.
When a cooperative controls 65 to 70% of A, the tonnage, and B, the market, then they do have a lot of control and decide a lot of things.
John Dekas, whose family first dabbled with cranberry production in the 1930s, now represents his namesake company. The collection of more than 150 growers and 500 acres of bogs have long carved a niche into the Ocean Spray-dominated industry. Dekas contends the latest glut of berries is due to poor planning and further amplified by juice blending practices.
The price went up. A lot of the major companies, and I'm not going to name them here now, but it isn't hard to figure it out, started putting less and less cranberry in their products. Problem with that is, you know, if there was a shortage and you need to do that, that's one thing. But there's no shortage now. There's an oversupply. Berries are very, very cheap. The growers are getting hammered as a result. And instead of passing that cut, that cost saving onto the consumer, they're putting it in their pockets.
Ocean Spray's Papadelis contends the blend of cranberry concentrate and other juices isn't linked to supply, but instead driven by consumers.
There's some who believe the industry is better off by putting more cranberries in the bottle. Well, everything we do is based on consumer research and consumer insights. And our goal is not necessarily to put the most amount of cranberry in the bottle, but it's to sell the most amount of bottles.
Like their heavyweight competitor, Dekas has aggressively marketed their sweetened dried cranberries, known in the industry as SDCs. The mid-sized operation also is bullish on its latest venture. The Dekas Fruitaceuticals are pumped full of previously leftover antioxidant-rich cranberry material.
If we've learned anything in this industry over the years, you can't stand still, because once you develop a particular product like sweet dried that's successful, and growers start making money, they start building more and more bogs. They're very aggressive and they're very good at what they do. An ordinary response to that is, well, you got to grow your way out of it. Well, you grow your way out of it by generating new products and opening new markets.
Expanding markets is at least one thing the overall industry may agree on. Ocean Spray has sought a consumer foothold in countries ranging from Western Europe to East Asia. The efforts could bolster demand for the largely North American fruit. But regardless of the outcome, cooperative members like Gary Gerritsen contend Ocean Spray is more than an end user of commodities.
It's not just a contract. We have a relationship with our marketing co-op, and that's different from just a contractual obligation to take my fruit and go away and give me the highest price. I feel it completes us as a farm, and I can concentrate on my farming and not on my marketing.
Cranberry production in 2010 is shaping up to be the second largest on record. USDA claims 7.35 million 100-pound barrels will be collected. That's up 6% from a year ago, leaving marketers like Deacon's and Ocean Spray to find a home for all those berries. For Market to Market, I'm Andrew Bott.
If you are interested in watching this cranberry feature again, go to our Farm Week website, farmweek.msucares.com. We'll also have links to the Market to Market website where you can see the story as well as read the entire script. We'll also have links there to Ocean Spray and the Deacon's cranberry websites. That's all at farmweek.msucares.com.
Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. The 2011 Mississippi Women in Agriculture Conference takes place April 12th and 13th in Starkville.
Next week, you'll see in our feature segment how this program has helped to develop the business skills of women. Those skills made all the difference for one woman who lost her husband and she took over their farm's management.
In Southern Gardening, see why potting mixes really aren't potting soils. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.